Let's go ahead and get to a big SCOTUS ruling that came out yesterday.
That's right. This is a major Supreme Court ruling that happened in the middle of a ceasefire, so you may have missed it, and you're definitely forgiven. We can go ahead and put this up there on the screen, and I'll just read a little bit from the decision. Quote, the Supreme Court has now made it easier for the Trump administration to deport convicted criminals to, quote, third countries to which they have no previous connection. In a brief, unsigned order that did not explain its reasoning, the court put on hold a federal judge's ruling that said those affected nationwide should have a meaningful opportunity to bring claims. They would be at risk if they were sent to countries the administration has made deals with to receive deported immigrants. As a result, the administration will be able to quickly remove immigrants to such third countries, including South Sudan. Affected immigrants can still attempt to bring individual claims. So what you're basically seeing there is this happened, I know, while I was gone, but there was this, what was it, a deportation to South Sudan of several, I think, individuals here illegally in the United States. Well, what has now happened is that the Supreme Court is allowing the deportation of this. However, the legal process that which this is done still remains up in the air, as I understand it. It allows for such deportation to take place, but there's still open questions around due process, just like with the Alien Enemies Act. But broadly, it was a win for the Trump administration at an executive level.
No doubt about it. And it was split along partisan lines. I don't think there was much question about whether or not the administration could deport people to third countries, places they're not from. That has been, a longstanding practice. This is something that has been broadly acknowledged that, the administration has this power, whether I like it or not. The question here was all around due process. Do you have a chance to challenge that decision to send you? For example, Libya is one of the countries that they want to send people to. We've talked about Libya a lot lately because in the context of Iran, things are not going well in Libya. Reports are that, they certainly in the past had effectively slave markets. And in fact, a lot of the people who were sold on those slave markets were migrants into the country. So to me, and Saagar and I agreed we don't have time to fight about this today. So we'll table this, for a longer discussion later. To me, you should have the ability, have enough time to say, hey, I think I'm going to be tortured and murdered and sold into a slave market if I go to this country, if I'm shipped to this country, and have that go through an adjudicated process. Effectively, the Supreme Court here, and I think you may agree with this, not only did they say, no, you don't really deserve any sort of lengthy due process, but this is an important decision, and it really bothers me that they didn't even explain their thinking. Because that really...
Well, I think it's a procedural thing in terms of the unsigned order, because it's something about injunctive relief.
They could have. And the dissent was written out and explained. Right. But the actual decision here, they give no rationale for. So it continues to leave all of these questions about why they interpreted it this way and what made them come to this decision. And I think that, I disagree with the decision outright, but I also think it's outrageous that they didn't even bother to explain what is, in effect, a quite consequential decision here ultimately. We also wanted to highlight for you guys a couple of interesting comments that I'm a little bit surprised at from Joe Rogan and then some from Andrew Schulz, where obviously, both of them were supportive of Trump in this past election. And Rogan expresses here some discomfort with the extent of the Trump deportation policy and the way they've gone about it, which, most of the people who are being detained at this point, like the overwhelming majority, I think 90%, are not violent criminals who have been picked up by the Trump administration. And so he expresses in this clip some discomfort with that. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
ICE raids are fucking nuts, man. Watching this protest on television, it's like...
You think the raids are nuts?
All of it's nuts.
Yeah, I think both sides are taking it a little too hard.
Well, I don't think if the Trump administration, if they're running and they said, we're going to go to Home Depot and we're going to arrest all the people at Home Depot, we're going to go to construction sites and we're going to just tackle people at constructions. I don't think anybody would have signed up for that. They said, we're going to get rid of the criminals and the gang members first. Right? And now we're seeing Home Depots get raided. That's crazy.
Something about the Home Depot really struck a chord with these guys, which is kind of interesting. I guess because it's just so known, so suburban. Joe probably maybe even has been to, because he used to live in LA, the particular Home Depot that was raided. I don't know. But I have to say, Saagar, on the Iran war stuff, yes, Trump said we should bomb the nuclear sites. He also said he would be the peace candidate. If you weren't paying that close of attention, I can maybe sort of give you the benefit of the doubt.
Come on.
In thinking
there was genuine ambiguity there.
Yeah, okay.
The guy literally came out and said, fuck, Israel and Iran don't know what the fuck they're doing today, and then also called for, and then said no regime change today.
Right,
but
I'm just saying.
You can read whatever you wanted.
Okay,
Yeah.
you could also have looked at his first term and how hawkish he was towards Iran, but like I said, I can see where you were coming from and why you may have gotten the impression that he would not be a hawk vis-a-vis Iran. I don't know how you could get that impression on deportations. Like, the whole campaign was mass deportation. They were holding up signs at the RNC that said, mass deportation now. Like, what about that made you think that this was going to be some targeted, we're only going after the criminals kind of approach? Because that was not at all what was sold during the election whatsoever. And so, listen, I'm glad to see him express concern, but I just think it's insane that you didn't think that was the direction that Stephen Miller was going to go and Tom Homan were going to go in if they were put back into power.
I mean, look, I don't disagree. I mean, the mass deportation was about as clear as it was. I think it was mass deportation in the trade war. I guess it's about implementation or seeing like there's something visceral probably about it. I mean, I don't know, because it is one of those things where, look, sometimes people believe in something, but they don't necessarily understand like what the overall implication of what it's going to play out is going to look like. I mean, it's understandable, I guess. So there hasn't really been a serious mass deportation effort like this in literally, 50 years or something like that. So, to that extent, that makes sense. But yeah, broadly, I mean, I would say in particular with like MAGA and, what they were saying literally at the time and also in terms of practice, there has not really been a single thing. I would maybe CCOT. I would say the rest of it has not personally surprised me. Like Home Depot.
CCOT surprised me.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
CCOT, but even he said he was going to do the Alien Enemies Act literally on the campaign trail. I think 70 days before he came 70 days before he was elected, he's like, here's my plan to use the Alien Enemies Act and to immediately expedite deportation. Again, you could sympathize because people are not paying attention, but at a mass deportation level, they made it pretty clear. I mean, yes, they were talking about criminal and illegal, but a large part of it here was about labor and cheap labor specifically. That's been a central point of the Trump talking points on immigration now for quite some time. But I guess people sometimes maybe see what they want to see as well with a criminal comment.
I think that's a good point. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Andrew Schulz. Just did this long interview with the New York Times, which I listened to all of. I don't know. I
haven't listened to the full thing yet.
It wasn't, I don't know. The interviewer and him were kind of like at odds the whole time.
I think the interviewer really didn't get his deal. And yeah, anyway, we talk about it.
Yeah, whatever.
I read the transcript, I didn't listen to it.
I did listen to it, and you didn't get a lot out of it. I don't know if it was Andrew's fault. I don't know if it was the interviewer's fault. They just didn't really, it wasn't a great pairing, I would say, the two of them together. In any case, Andrew made some kind of similar comments with regard to immigration and Trump. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
And in terms of immigration, I want more. If you broke the law, if you broke the law, you fucked up. You're already here illegally, so you already broke the law, and you're breaking the law, you got to go. If you've been working your ass off for 10 years here, you've got a family, there's got to be a system where we can just give these people a pathway to citizenship or a green card or something. There has to be a better way than simply just, hey, you go. And that's what I was pleading with him for on the pod, which is, maybe pleading is a strong word, but I was asking him to show empathy for these people that he's also employed. I was like, listen, you've had hotels. You know these people. You know that they're going to bust their ass. They're going to work hard and they want a better life. It's like why my mom came here. It's why your parents or maybe his great-grandparents or some shit came here. So it's like, I would like there to be much more empathy in that department. I don't think that that's happening.
And what would Democrat have to do to win your vote back?
He would just have to be named Bernie Sanders, and I'll fucking vote for him in a heartbeat. No.
Enjoy that last comment there.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting horseshoe. But in any case, I am actually a little bit surprised that these guys didn't know what they were getting with.
Well, no, I think it's a little bit more fair on Rogan's end and on Andrew. Andrew actually literally was pressing Trump about immigration, and to the extent that he was pro-Trump or whatever, I don't think he ever signed up for the quote mass deportation.
The full mass deportation.
And that's my point. And this is why people are not to be put into a box. And it is important as well to play this all out. Now, I would not have done it the way that Trump has has done it. However, and this, look, Andrew is a good friend of mine, and I do disagree with him, though. I mean, I don't think that just coming to the country illegally and just because you, quote, haven't committed a crime gives you some great license for a green card. I mean, frankly, it's an absurd policy. But as you said, you don't want to fight. But my main point remains is that immigration, look, the polling is all over the place. We can, I think, probably agree it's still the strongest place for Donald Trump. Maybe war will replace it. I still think it's the central reason why he was elected president, both in 2016 and again in 2024. But broadly, I mean, I think one of the reasons, maybe it's a lesson for Democrats as well, is that you have people who literally believe in comprehensive immigration reform, but when you have border chaos, they're like, yeah, fuck this, and they're going to go with somebody who stands for mass deportation. In general, Americans react to whoever they think is being more chaotic on the issue of crime and or immigration. If anything, I think it's a good lesson for those people. Also, that you can win people back, or that the narrative is not locked in if you want it to be. Part of why I would encourage the Trump administration to do this efficiently and not constantly just. I mean, this is now like the strategy of Trump is everything is a show. Everything is dialed up to 100. Like we're doing regime change and unconditional surrender, and the next day we're calling for world peace. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, well,
in terms of,
the reporting is he basically outsourced the deportation policy to Stephen Miller.
Yes and no, but then also he takes control of it, and there's been a 5-time swing back at this point. I literally still am not clear as to whether we're raiding farms or not, and it's been 20 days of we're raiding farms. Actually, hotels and farmers need illegals to work there. Let's all ruminate on that for a second too, as to why that's apparently an allowable reason. Then Stephen Miller is like, no, actually, we're going to be raiding them. And then Trump comes out and is like, no, actually, we're not going to be raiding them. I believe we are back to some sort of strategic pause.
Oh, no, I thought we were back on with.
No, we were, but then
raids.
That 2 days ago, apparently that changed. This is what I'm saying, is that there's been a complete schizophrenia here. And if anything, I mean, that's what really hurts Trump's cause, is that nothing is coherent and ideologically sold. America is, I think, absolutely on board with criminal or illegal, or criminal specifically, people who have committed crimes.
Yeah,
but they've done a bad job, I think, of messaging specifically on the labor issue, especially when the president is out there talking about how these farmers and hotel workers literally need illegal labor to function. I mean, it boggles the mind that a segment of industry cannot function without hiring a U.S. citizen. It's absurd. And why would an American president endorse that? If that's actually the case, that's your job to fix. So, I think that's the problem, though, is that he's constantly got these rich people in his ear, talking his head off about how, well, we can't do that without doing all of this. And it actually drives me particularly crazy because one of JD's canned speeches on the campaign trail, I probably heard this 50 times, is about a hotel executive telling him about how he can't run his hotels at a profit without using illegal labor. And so then the president is now parroting that same thing at the podium.
But the president is that hotel executive. That's who he is.
That's my point.
But here's the thing is, I do actually want to fight with you, but we don't have time to fight fully on this today because we got Emily waiting, then we got Professor Sachs. I will just say, I think where the confusion comes from is that Trump aggressively sold the idea on the campaign trail that undocumented immigrants overall were criminal, that there was a huge number, millions of criminals who had flooded the country in an invasion. Oh my God, they're taking over entire town. Oh my God, they're taking over entire apartment complexes. And so I think that's where a lot of people, not just Joe Rogan, probably got the idea of mass deportation, we can do a mass deportation that is just criminals. When in reality, the numbers are comparatively small of actual violent criminals who are also undocumented immigrants. I'm not saying there aren't any, but you really get the sense of that when the guys they shipped off to CCOT, to a literal slave labor camp for the rest of their lives with no due process, when the vast majority even of them had no criminal record here or in other countries around the world. So I think that's where, not only was there confusion about what mass deportation would ultimately mean, but also where there has been significant, yes, immigration is still his strongest policy. He's now underwater on his strongest policy, though, where there's been significant upset in the way that this has gone forward. Because, yes, if you ask people, should we deport criminal, illegal aliens, you'll get like 89%, right? Including myself. Sure, yes, go do it. If you ask them about, the person that Rogan or Andrew are talking about there, they've been like here for years and years, and they don't commit any crimes, and they pay tax, and they do the right thing. Should you deport them? It's actually the polar opposite. You get almost 80% opposed to the deportation of those people. And so I think that's why you've had a decline in support, and why you've had, some people, some former supporters who are expressing concern over this, and why I think it was an overreading of the mandate that, yes, I'm not downplaying that immigration was an important factor. I'm not downplaying there was, rejection of the of Biden era immigration policies. But I think the reading was that then people wanted the Stephen Miller deportation policy when that is not actually popular either.
Well, I mean, you could say that they have their last second term and now they don't have to get reelected. So if in a sense they're like, look, this is the only chance that you actually have at literal mass deportation. Again, we don't have time to fight, but if it's 20
we
million,
will in the future,
well, you know
don't
what
worry.
1% of 20 million is? It's 200,000. So that's actually a lot of people, even if just 1% are people who are violent criminals, which would, even the shit libs will admit that that's a big number, I think. And that has not yet reached for what in terms of the deportation numbers that have been released.
But they're also not targeting those people. It's the percent of immigrants who are detained who have criminal records is way down under the Trump administration. No, it's not. It's like 10%. Who have violent criminal records, it's roughly 10%, according to a new Cato Institute study.
Okay, well, let's
but I don't think anyone would. I don't think that anyone would deny that there's been a reduction in the percentage of people who've been detained. Stephen Miller's policy went in and yelled at ICE and was like, "Why are you going after criminals? Go to the Home Depot." So that is his policy.
I will
is
grant
the
that.
policy of the administration.
I think a part of it is about the larger number. I'm not trusting an literal libertarian open borders institute number study for that. I'm not trusting the government either. So let's also say that. And I'm not going to deny that there have been major problems, I think, on the Trump administration's end. However, at a narrative level victory, how will Trump fare on immigration? I think that the more that it is about order, specifically, which is really what I think he was elected to restore, the better off he will be. Part of the reason I thought that LA really did not go well for him. And I think a lot of the polling broadly backs that up. As they saw that the government was kind of part of instigating more disorder than order. That's broadly what America really wants in terms of its crime and its immigration policy. And that is really the eternal fight. And largely, where people suffer, Biden suffered because he let 8 to 10 million people illegally in the country, which is nuts with literally no policy. And if Trump suffers, it will be because deported people with no due process and there's shoddy and shitty, obvious lies from the government. And people would see through that and be like, okay, well, even though I was on board, this doesn't look like restoring order to me. So for my personal criticism of them and all of that, it's the constant chaos as it is throughout the implementation of all of their policy, which actually undermines any real stated goal and broadly will lead to pushback, I think, from the American people. And that's part of what these guys are picking up on as well. When they say Home Depot, I don't think it's actually physically just about the Home Depot raid. I think it's about the fact that, like you said about the Stephen Miller thing, being like, oh, actually, no, go in there and go against Home Depot.
Forget the criminals,
right?
go after
We're going
Home
from this,
Depot.
and it's the schizophrenia, actually, which makes people really react in a certain way. But anyway,
it's a vibe.
Right, we have
vibe
Emily.
Shift.
We really need to get to her.
Yeah.
I apologize. All right, let's get to it. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.